Hi everyone, welcome to U.S. News Summary for, let's see, what month is it? August. I believe today is the 2nd of August. Thanks everyone for stopping by the show. As you know, we conduct this show in English, and I summarize the top news stories in the U.S. So today, what I want to do, and I think I've said this before in the past, I want to condense the show and do it more often. So if we do a 25 or 30-minute show, then I can't record the show as frequently as I'd like to. So we're going to do a shorter version of the U.S. News Summary, and hopefully, we hope to do it more often. So today's topic is an update on the presidential election, or the campaigning, that's being carried out in the U.S. right now. So as I'm sure you know, we're down to just two candidates from the two main political parties of the U.S. And last week, or maybe it's been 2 weeks now, but over the last 2 weeks, both parties have held their conventions. So we had the Republican convention held first, and then we had the Democratic convention held after that. And at the Republican Party convention, I believe it was held in Cleveland, Donald Trump accepted the nomination to be the Republican candidate for the President of the U.S. in the upcoming election to be held on November 4th of this year. And then later, the week after that, Hillary Clinton accepted the nomination of the Democratic Party. And she became the first female candidate from a major party to be designated the candidate, to be chosen as the official candidate of the party. So in the past, we've had women candidates, we've had female candidates from smaller parties. You probably haven't even heard of them, but there are a lot of smaller parties, political parties in the U.S., but they're very small, and the support is minimal. So there's a party called the Green Party, and sometimes we have third-party candidates. So in the election of 1992, I think it was, you had Clinton and Bush Sr., so George W. Bush's father, H.W. Bush was his name, Herbert Walker Bush, on one side representing the Republicans, and you had Bill Clinton as the Democratic candidate, and then a wealthy businessman from Texas whose name was Ross Perot, and he was what we call a third-party candidate. He wasn't a Democrat, he wasn't a Republican. And he got a substantial amount of the vote. He was successful in the debates. He was a good debater, and I think he got about 16% of the vote. So that's a sizable amount of the vote. Of course, that year, Clinton won. And Bush Sr., turned out to be a one-term president. So if someone's a president for 4 years, then they're a one-term president. If they're a president for 8 years, or they're re-elected once, then they become a two-term president. So Clinton was elected, then re-elected, became a two-term president, and then we had Bush for 8 years, then we had Obama for 8 years. And we'll see who wins this year. So both candidates accepted the nomination from their respective parties. So respective is an important word to know. It doesn't mean respectful. It has nothing to do with respectful. It's respective. And it kind of means each, right, or their own, or sometimes in an order, right? So the candidates accepted the nominations of their parties, or of their respective parties. So each accepted their own nomination is what that means. So now it's official. Now Hillary is officially the Democratic candidate. So let's look at first the Republican convention. Like I said, I think it was held in Cleveland, and it was fairly contentious. So it was a little bit controversial. Normally, you'd have former presidents that would appear and support the candidate. And this year, you didn't have that. So we didn't see, for example, George Bush, the former president from the Republican Party. He wasn't there. He didn't offer his support. And Mitt Romney, who was a former Republican candidate for president, he was not in attendance. And he has spoken out against Trump. So if you protest someone or you're against them, we say he spoke out against someone. So Romney, over the last few months, has spoken out against Trump. He has condemned Trump on multiple occasions. So obviously he wasn't in attendance. Former Presidents Bush and his father, Bush Sr., were also not in attendance. Jeb Bush, the early front runner on the Republican side, was not in attendance. So that was something that was interesting. And then you had the plagiarism scandal of, I think her name is Melania Trump. Trump's wife spoke, and it turned out that certain phrases, certain sentences in her speech were plagiarized from an earlier speech by Michelle Obama, the First Lady. So plagiarism is an important word to know. It's usually used in the noun form, so that's plagiarism. People have accused him of plagiarism, but it can also be used as a verb. So he plagiarized a few paragraphs of his speech. Don't plagiarize me. Make sure you don't plagiarize any of your sources. So this is obviously very important in academic writing. Less so in speeches, but it's definitely frowned upon, right? It's not something one should strive to do, obviously. So that was a scandal that developed at the Republican convention. And then later on, a speechwriter of hers apologized and said that it was her mistake. So she took the blame for the plagiarism scandal. But we also have an interesting word. She fell on her sword. There's that expression in English, and if you think about samurais or samurai culture, you'll understand what it means. When you take the blame for something, we can say you become the sacrificial lamb. That exists in Korean as well. I'm the scapegoat. I was the scapegoat. Or you could say, I fell on my sword, committed suicide, and took the blame. Or another word is they threw her under the bus. If you make someone your scapegoat, if you make someone your sacrificial lamb, we also say they threw her under the bus. So those are all expressions related to that type of circumstance in English. Okay, let's move on to the Democratic convention. So Hillary officially accepted the nomination, and Bernie Sanders, a former candidate who has suspended his campaign, he's put it on hold, he's paused it, we say suspended, but for all intents and purposes, he's finished. He's terminated his campaign. He endorsed Hillary. So we learned endorsed in one of the English workshop lectures. I think it was a few weeks ago or a few months ago. We learned the word endorse. It means to support officially. So Bernie Sanders threw his support behind Hillary, finally. He finally officially supported Hillary. But the Democratic campaign was contentious, was filled with controversy as well. because a lot of the Bernie Sanders supporters were not ready to throw their support behind Clinton. They still weren't ready to endorse or support Hillary's nomination yet. So that was one issue. There were people booing in the crowd. Boo, right? When people are upset, we say they boo. So a lot of people were booing in the crowd. And also prior to the convention, a couple weeks prior to that, WikiLeaks released a bunch of emails that were hacked from the Democratic Party headquarters. The Democratic National Convention, I think is what they were called. So WikiLeaks released a bunch of emails between the chairman of the DNC and other Democratic Party operatives or high-level executives that talked about kind of holding down Bernie's campaign and supporting Hillary. They were supposed to be a disinterested party. They were supposed to separate themselves and not have any biases. We learned leanings, right? They weren't supposed to lean towards either candidate. Officially, they're not supposed to endorse or lean towards either candidate for the nomination. But a lot of these emails that were hacked seem to suggest that from the beginning, from the outset, the DNC, the Democratic Party, wanted to help Hillary and kind of hold Bernie's campaign down and tamp it down, not support it in any way and kind of undermine it. So that was another that was an issue of contention at the Democratic Party. So let's see, we heard from Obama. President Obama spoke at the convention, as did Michelle Obama, the First Lady. And I can't remember if Bill Clinton must have spoke, but I don't remember it. He was definitely there. And so she won the support, she won the endorsement of many Democratic leaders or Democratic Party leaders. So that's how that goes. And then, that's the news on the two conventions. Both parties held their respective conventions over the last 2 weeks and now have official candidates for the general election coming up this November. One last thing I'll say about Trump. A recent Trump scandal has been that he's engaged in a war of words. When you debate someone or argue with someone, especially publicly, we can call it a war of words. So over the last few days, following the convention, Trump has been engaged in a war of words with the parents of a slain U.S. soldier. So somebody asked me on the Facebook Live broadcast a few days ago what slay meant. Slay means to kill, but it's more formal. So to murder someone implies a premeditation, that it's something someone does on purpose, or it's a violent act, right? Murder. Kill is just the informal, commonly used word, but slay is a more formal word. So sometimes in the newspaper you'll see parents of slain soldiers. That means parents of killed soldiers, or soldiers killed in combat, right? Slain U.S. soldiers. Anyhow, Trump has been in a debate, a very public debate, with the parents, the Muslim parents of a slain soldier. So I think it was about 10 years ago, a U.S. soldier was killed, and he was Muslim, and his parents were Muslim. And they spoke at the Democratic Convention and condemned Trump. And they said, "Oh, Trump, have you even read the Constitution? I know more about the Constitution than you. Do you want to read my copy?" And the Muslim father of the slain soldier took out a copy of the Constitution and said, "You should read it." And he condemned Trump for his attacks on U.S. Muslims or the Muslim faith. So then Trump responded and they've been arguing back and forth. They've been trading insults. And then a lot of parents of fallen soldiers, we also say fallen, it's another word for slain or killed. A lot of parents of fallen US soldiers have spoken out against Trump and said, how could you attack the parents of a slain US soldier? You've gone too far, right? You've crossed the line. So that's been a recent issue with Trump. All right, if you have any questions or if you couldn't understand a certain sentence that I said over the last, 15 minutes now, go ahead and tell me the time, at exactly what point in the lecture you had trouble understanding, and I'll respond as soon as I can. Thanks everyone for stopping by this edition of US News Summary, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.